I cannot find the comic books that I'm going to review today. I just read them. I backtracked, I took my kids sledding. I was in the car with them. Where could they be? I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are because, you'll just have to wait a little bit longer. But so I'm going, oh my gosh. Okay. So are they somewhere on the shelf? No. Are they in the pile? No. I'm trying to redo my basement. They're not on my new shelf. So what do I know? Nothing. And so then I have a half hour to look for them, guys, because I kind of have till 8 and then, John's wrapping up at 8:30 and it's kind of the central time. So that's what I have to find these comics. And I look for a full 30 minutes, 30 minutes, come completely shorthanded. I mean, I don't know where they could be. It's a whole pile of comics that I was reading this week. They're not by my couch. Sometimes upstairs, I put them on the arm of the couch. They weren't there, but it doesn't matter. I'll tell you all about them anyway. They're super great comics. I even have pictures to show you because I'm so excited to talk about them. But, guys, I cannot find these comics. So I'll tell you what, that's enough meandering talk. If you're tuning in, don't tune out yet. I'm sorry that was boring. But guess what? John's going to start the show off right for us right now, Johnny boy.
Yes, awesome. All right, you guys. Hey, comic book lookers and rainbow customers. It's your boy, John on Demand, a.k.a. I don't really have an a.k.a. It's Comic Book Sabbath, kind of, and we'll talk about that. So it's a part-time situation, but I am Mr. a.k.a. Bring Back My X-Men today. And, of course, you guys, joined by co-CEO Tom Devine. There can only be one, a.k.a. Highlander in braids today. Yes. And, of course, you guys, special guest. I introduced Bill last week as comic book royalty, so same. I'm going to call you the Duke of Comic Books, straight from Comic Book Bears podcast. We got Steve Mowry is in the building. How are you doing, Steve?
Howdy. How's everybody doing? I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
So we are just excited to talk some books with you and hang out and just get to know you a little bit. But first, how are things in your neck of the woods in the country? We've had some weather going across the country there. So how is life for Steve?
Well, I live in central North Carolina at a little town called Winston-Salem. It is famous for Winstons and Salems, and camels apparently used to be here. So if you used to smoke a lot in the 60s, there you go. This is where it was. This is the place to be. But we had for the past week and a half, a solid everyday rain, ice, rain, more ice. Our crawl space flooded a couple times. It was just not pretty. But then magically, all of a sudden, starting on Sunday, the sun came out, and today it is actually 70 degrees here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So we were like, oh, finally something. It was a very big change, and I'm just hoping it kind of stays a little bit. But March is always a question mark. It could be just pouring rain or possibly even snow. We don't know.
You never know.
Yep.
But, the weather will come and go. You know what? Come and goes. Wednesdays with comic books, John. What happened? Okay. You know what? Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it, but guys, it's not a good Wednesday. Like he said, John warned you up. It's the Sabbath, but is it? Who knows? The only thing that will bring us back is if we have the greatest guest that we possibly could have. So thank you so
much. You're here to save the day.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. So
I don't know.
We are super stoked to have you on and having you join us. So tell us, where you're from and then let's start talking about comics. Let's forget the weather. And I want to hear that comic goodness. How'd you get into comics? How'd you get involved with Comic Book Bears? And tell us the whole deal.
Yeah.
Clearly, we heard the rundown. Bill gave us the 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you can skip whatever you want. Most of everybody watched it, but it was so good. It'll be hard to top. We'll see. What do you think, John? You think Steve can do it?
I think he can do it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I mean, unlike my co-host Bill, I have not written a comic book, so I'm not going to get that cool blown away. Holy crap, you guys are amazing. That kind of thing. I don't have any crazy surprises like that. No secret cures for cancer or anything like that. But so getting into comics, I think my origin story is pretty similar to a lot of people. I bought my first comics or first comic book like back in like maybe 1989. It was an X-Men classic. Trying to remember the number, but basically I was just enthralled by the cover. I'd never heard of the X-Men before. I'm, 8, 9-year-old kid. Like, I don't know who the X-Men is. I know who Spider-Man is, Superman. I've seen the cartoons. I've got the toys, that kind of thing. But the X-Men just blew me away, and it was just fantastic. The covers by Steve Lytle, beautiful, introduced you to all the characters, and then of course it was a great story about Arcade having captured all the X-Men and forcing them to fight robots and versions of themselves and all sorts of stuff. It was pretty cool, and from there I was kind of hooked. And at the time I was living in Ohio and then moved to Rhode Island, so spent the rest of that childhood in New England. Read comics for several years, but then of course high school came around and kind of stopped.
Yeah. See you later. That's what happens. You say bye. Yeah. I mean, I got other things to worry about, like, trying to fill my car with gas and having, money to get cool clothes, which you never actually end up getting,
I mean, hey, I spent tons of my own money on really cool, alien skater tees. I had tons of those, graphic tees. I haven't stopped wearing the graphics tees, but in the 90s, there's one place you went, Pac Sun, all the time. So you got your Jinko jeans, you got your alien tees, you're good.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so I spent all my money on comics and video games and movies and had a huge movie collection, all that stuff. So ask me about movies sometime. But when I went up to college, I continued checking out and haunting those sides of bookstores and those cool shops, and a lot of times head shops, even Hot Topic in the mall. You would sometimes see comic books, and I just I started picking them up here and there, and mostly got some indie stuff. Nothing too serious, but stay away from the superheroes, but got some really wacky little things here and there, and some books that I just fell in love with. And then about 10 years ago, DC was doing this little, special promotion, something called the New 52, whatever. It didn't really last very long. But I was like, this is the perfect time to just jump on. That's what they do. Their marketing department always talks about, oh, it's a great time for everybody to jump on. And usually it doesn't. It's just a great time for people to just spend a ton of money on number ones. Well, for me, it actually worked. I was like, I'm going to come back. I'm going to read comics again.
That's awesome.
So I did. And, a lot of people give New 52 a lot of crap because it, ran roughshod over continuity, and it screwed up a lot of character timelines, and some people just didn't like some of the creator decisions. But I really am grateful for them doing that because it gave me an excuse to jump in and get back into comics. And then, of course, once I did that, then I started getting into the X-Men everything again, and Valiant came back, and Dark Horse I fell in love with, the Hellboy universe and all of that stuff for basically the first time. And I mean, indie, there's just so much stuff going on. It was just golden age of comics. This is what we are definitely in, the new golden age of comics, just with the choice, the great stuff, representation. There's everything for everything for everybody basically out there. And this was just the perfect time to come back into comics, and I never left. So.
Oh, I love that. I mean, how you talk about this being the new golden age, and what a cool story, man. That was exactly. And you know what, dude, New 52, I read every single, the first 5 issues of all 52 series. And it was a great time. There was only 3 good DC series that were happening that it really messed with anyway. The rest cares anyway. And I remember being upset, man, you're gonna mess with the Flashpoint right now, it's so good. And then it's you know what, I didn't really care. And Flashpoint was good, and then this was fine too. And but yeah, dude, that's such a fun way to put it, talking about to now being the golden age of comics. That's so exciting for me to hear, because I totally agree. in so many aspects, and just like the way that, you know, how many different types of stories we have here, how really comics are unlimited with all the new smaller publishers coming out, being able to tell whatever stories with no budget limitations, and then it being the real training ground, improving ground of storytelling for today's pop culture, and how that it what is popular here in 2 to 3, 4 years will be what's popular in pop culture. It's the true training ground of storytelling. So I just loved everything you said there, man. So cool to hear.
Well, you know, and what's funny, like you just said it right there. Like, this is kind of like people are testing out storylines and introducing characters and things that you know are going to be either on the silver screen or on the small screen in just a few years' time. I mean, what was it, maybe 2 years ago that Bendis wrote the character Naomi, and that, you know, the miniseries came out. Guess what? Next year, it's going to be on TV. It's going to be on CW.
Exactly.
So, you know, it really is taking a lot less time now, because people are really looking at what's out there in comics, know that there's a huge list of successful franchises, characters, you know, shows that have popped up, even things that people didn't even think were comic book related, did really, really well. And so now they're just mining it. It's, you know, people for years have been mining novels and even plays and previous movies, and just to create what you see on TV or to remake and put it on the big screen. Comics have been around for 100 years at this point, and, you know, superheroes for over 80. There's plenty of stories to tell, and even the people who say, like, oh, we don't want to hear that one again. And I do have some issues with, you know, Fox's X-Men universe, because, like, are we really getting this story again? Do we really want to have another interpretation? That sucks. But, you know, there's so many stories out there. You can tell pretty much everything. It doesn't have to be an origin. You can throw anything out there with superheroes or anything else with comics. I mean, one of the best new shows on TV right now that they're shocked about how high the ratings are going is Resident Alien, based on a comic book of the same name, now on Sci-Fi. And it's their best rated program on Sci-Fi, with an audience that keeps going up. And here's a comic book that nobody really thought, oh, I'm going to film this. Well, no, here you go. A couple of years later, now it's on TV. Doing great.
I know. That's exciting.
So,
Absolutely. We are getting some outstanding input here from our viewers, so got to give it up. Mr. James, faithfully tuning in. Hey, James. And James, I got something for you later in the episode here based on a exchange of things from a previous episode, so we shall see. Also, regarding, I believe DC New 52 is when this one came in, the shade of it all. Steve.
Speaking of, The Shade was a great series. The Shade series in 2012, I think, was when it came out. 2012 to 2013. Came out of the New 52. Wasn't technically part of the New 52, but was a great release that DC had. Yes, The Shade. Thank you for reminding me, James. The Shade. Yes. That's a great book.
The Shade, man. Starman continued. I love that series.
Matt's writing in here, how wavy is John's hair tonight? John had some serious bedhead, so we are going straight bandana tonight to keep that mess under control. So no, we will not find out on camera. Matt also Matt also writes, all those books in the background of Steve's room is this week's pull list, which I would believe.
That's right. Steve I got all the Source comics. Content. I got all of them. You guys don't get them. I went to the distribution center in Memphis, and I picked them off of the FedEx truck. So sorry, everybody, you're not getting your new comics this week.
And then finally, from Mr. Matt, Steve is a true comic book lover. His taste is across the spectrum, which I can personally attest to. And for anyone tuning in that is not familiar with Comic Book Bears, get familiar because they cover a wide spectrum of literature and media available throughout all of the different platforms and mediums. So definitely check them out.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about Comic Book Bears now. We like getting that comic book look exclusive. So give us your perspective. What's the skinny? Tell us about your first impressions of the show and what it was like on that first episode.
So I do have to say, Comic Book Bears had been running for several years before I joined, but actually it started in basically 2013. I know Bill was on last week and he talked about how he and Justin basically had the show starting back in 2012. when it was just the two of them chit-chatting with each other. And then, of course, Brian joined as well, Brian Pittard. And that's about the time that I started listening in 2013 or so to them. And then also Brian's other podcast group, Flame On, which I also want to promote them too because they're awesome. I listened to them constantly, every week, every time they had an episode out. And I actually ended up reaching out to Brian eventually and just kind of, gushing and being a fanboy. And we ended up meeting up at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I was living at the time, back in 2014. And then I got invited on the show as a guest, which was really awesome. And then they invited me back, a few months later, which was also really awesome. And at that point, at the end of that recording, after the end of that episode, they, basically said, "Hey, you want to stay? We really like having you around." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And of course, I was kidding. Like I was like, "Yeah, you guys really want me for your, for your other co-host." But I was just exploding inside from joy. So basically, in 2015, I was a full-time person starting there, and I actually went back into our archives to find what that episode was, and I think it was like episode 54 maybe. I'm terrible with numbers, but yeah. So that I've been with the show for about almost 6 years now. So, and we've, Matt Broussard was in the cast as well. So he was part of our team for a while, and Justin left and Matt left, and it's been basically Brian, Bill, and myself. For the past couple of years, and then Caleb came on and joined us for most of last year. Caleb from the Southern Fried Geekery podcast, which I'm also a huge fan of. So it's a lot of fun. So people come in and join. It's always fun to be a guest and sometimes be an extended guest presence or a what's the recurring character?
Yeah,
I think is what they call in TV. But that's how I started with Comic Book Bears, and I've been there ever since.
Awesome.
Oh, cool! That's such a cool story, and you guys are so awesome. I mean, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That awesome, and I'm so I had never heard of you. John put me onto you guys, and then I was definitely I'm a regular as well. So,
thank you so much. Well, if you go back into our older episodes, I mean, right now we kind of keep it around the hour and a half mark. But back then, I mean, just several years ago, I mean, we were regularly hitting, and this is when we were just audio. We were hitting like 2.5. We have some 3-hour epics where we just got in and we're just like, you know what? We're just going to talk about this stuff and it's going to all come out. And, we just went on. I mean, we've had one of the best things about the Comic Book Bears is that we've had so many great creators on the show as well as guests, talking about things that they're kickstarting, books that they're publishing. Some of them first time publishers, some of them are industry veterans who have been around for a long time. People who are even comic book historians and comic book experts will come on and talk about books they've written and put out, or some of the things that they've been working on. And it's really exciting. Yeah, it's really fun to do, and I love doing that. So,
exactly. I mean, me and John do that to a very lesser degree, but it is still so exciting for us. And just like being a part of the community, exploring the culture, exploring, this niche of this world that is so lush and full of art and free think and thought, forward thought. And I just love being a part of that and exploring it and looking into it and delving into it, and then just finding like such a cool community inside of it that's so open and fun to be a part of. And I don't know, man. Yeah, that's like the best part.
Well, yeah, I mean, it like some of the books that these guys have read and recommended me over the years, when we'll come on in an episode, and sometimes we won't know exactly what the other person's going to be talking about. And they've recommended and introduced me to some really amazing books over the years. Authors that I didn't know I would fall absolutely in love with. We all have our favorites. We all kind of have our little corners that we kind of throw recommendations from. But it's amazing some of the stuff that that Bill's read or Brian's read or Matt's read, Justin read that I now consider some of my favorites. Series I hadn't even thought of giving a chance, but listening to them talk about it every other week or every week, it just I was like, hey, then I end up with all of this, and it's just sort of like, oh, thanks guys, thanks for expanding my interests a lot. And now I got to deal with this, and this isn't. I was joking before with John that this is only just some of my short boxes, my long boxes. Some of them are stored elsewhere. Not as bad as Mr. Bill Zanowitz, though, who has a bunker at an undisclosed location storage unit that is just chock full.
I mean, his number of telling me that he has 51% of the DC comics ever printed. Like I'm still, it's been sticking with me. Like I've been thinking about that almost every single day. Just like I'll be working, I'll be doing something. I'll be like, Bill has 51% of the. What? How many comics have they printed for him to have 51%? It's just like that. That's mind blown, man.
I have to say, if you ever have the chance to hang around with him at a Comic-Con, when we have Comic-Cons again,
yes,
if you ever have a chance, he brings with him sort of like this stack of paper where like everything's basically single spaced. It's all the stuff that he's looking for, all of his gaps, everything that's in his collection, all printed out. And as he finds something, just going through every single bin. Like you'll pass by a booth where it smells like grandma's basement, and that Bill's got to stop and go through at least half of those boxes because he knows he's going to find something. He's going to find that Charlton book that he's been looking for. He's going to find that that one Brave and the Bold special issue from 1962. Like it's going to be there.
Exactly.
I don't even know if they had Brave and the Bold in 62, but he's the expert. He would know.
Man, yeah, dude, just true comic book royalty. John called it, man. So yeah, that's so legit. Hell yeah, dude. Well, that brings us into we're talking about books now. Before we get too deep, John has a hot take.
Yes. All right, you guys.
On for the hot takes.
Hot take. All right, you guys. Again, it's John Demand here, aka Comic Book April O'Neil. Looking so good. We're in a country-wide crisis, you guys, and I'm not talking about COVID, but this Diamond Comic shipping thing really had me in a pinch today, and so I think that several of us met this extreme challenge today. So being a loyal disciple of Comic Book Sabbath and going to practice my religion and had my credit card at the ready, I was quite disappointed to walk in and see Future State books, which I'm like, womp, sad trombone. And there wasn't any Marvel or Indie to purchase. I was so bummed. So with that, I actually took the approach that we had to adopt similar to when COVID first hit, right? And we were closing everything down. And so I was thinking, what's new to me? And I was thinking back to a conversation that James and I had. So James, our viewer here, and I had, and he totally blew my mind about as one of the books that I'll be reviewing today, which is Aria. And I was thinking, I'm going to hit that backstock. I want to learn. And so I did my research, and I got lots of backstock, including the shiny cover. Woo! So I love my shiny foil cover. So I got Aria and Angela. I got Aria, the Soul Market. I mean, these titles are rocking. The Uses of Enchantment. And then just another Aria short run. But I mean, these covers are gorgeous. The thing I don't like about Batstock is having to peel off those darn price tags. But I'm so excited to check these out, you guys. I can't go into the why too much because that's also like my book review. But I just was like, let's go ahead and get something new to me. And so with that, that's how I adopted to the situation. James's reaction is amazing. Yes. So James, this is all your fault. Congratulations. All 20 of these new comics or whatever it is. So they're all, it's funny because they're like one shots or they're like 5-issue runs or whatever. So they didn't have every single, unfortunately, but I just rolled with what they had. Yes, he did go and hunt for old Aria books. Yes, I did. I was on a mission.
Testament to Rainbow Comics, just like, hey, I need some books. Yeah, we do have those. Oh man, Rainbow Comics coming through clutch.
Yeah. So thank you, Rainbow Comics, for enabling my horrible habits as always. But I'm really excited to read these. I actually have a 4-day weekend starting now. So I will be putting some work in, reading some Aria. But nothing.
Yes.
So definitely really excited to check that out, though. So James, I am just hoping that without going into my review too much, that these books definitely mirror the awesomeness that I experienced with Aria. So, but we'll get more into that later because that's part of my book reviews. And that is my hot take.
Hot takes. Yeah. That's a hot take, man. And I'll tell you, I feel you, man. What is, yeah, I understand. Half the country's under ice. There's a national emergency. Okay, you know what? I'll lay off this week. I'll still go to my shop. And I picked up one of the books because I'm not reading any future state. But I did what John did as well. It's like, why wouldn't you, right? And then look what I got, though. I just went for the West Coast Avengers run. You know what I'm saying, son?
Throw up the W's. Yeah.
Just went deep. And so I figured, why the hell not? And then I also, this was on the, all of this is on just the $1 rack at Rainbow. So I was like, of course, I'm just going to go deep. I have no idea what Hex is, but is it tied to somebody related to Jonah Hex or something like that? Who knows? Probably not. I'm going to still check it out. And then, of course, West Coast Avengers. Who doesn't root for the West Coast, the underdogs, baby. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, I'll take those from the dollar wall. That's my boy John representing, putting all those fun old comics on that dollar wall. So thank you so much, John from Rainbow, for hooking me up on this day that wasn't that good. And so, now we can talk about the books we could pick up.
Yes. All right. Well, perfect. Well, that was totally my hot take. You picked up some books. That's all I picked up. The only other thing I will highlight is I did not pick these up, which is really naughty to say on a comic book sponsored show. But I am borrowing, my friend Patrick at work recommended this Shang-Chi recent series. So not the new ongoing one, but a 5-issue run. So this is a character in a part of the MCU that I'm not familiar with. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that. I just got him this afternoon from him. So he said, you need to try this out and see what you think. And I said, okay.
Cool, man.
So,
yeah, I didn't
give that a whirl.
I'm not sure, but I've read plenty of Shang-Chi books, and they're hit or miss. The old ones from like the whatever it is, late 70s, early 80s are still cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Never read any Shang-Chi. Sorry.
Yeah.
My Marvel back catalog isn't that great, sadly. Other than X-Men.
Right on. Yep. And X-Men's where it's at anyways. Don't worry.
Well, there's now. It's good now.
That's true. Yeah, I will agree fully with that, actually.
There was a time.
Previous years. Yeah. Well, cool. Wow, we got some, instead of reviewing books that we picked up tonight, you guys, we're going to turn it up a notch here, and we're going to get into books that we've read recently and liked. Or not, maybe not even liked, but that we've read recently, and we're going to share our thoughts on it. So, with that, I'm going to actually put the spotlight on our guest here, and I'm going to let you take the wheel, Steve.
Me? Oh, no. Well, okay, I guess if I have to. Oh, wonderfully, I have things prepared. So, one of the things that I love to do, I love indie books. I love giving, small press publishers a chance. If I meet somebody at a con, I'm really, really likely, I'm that guy who's going to drop the $5 and pick up the book that they've gotten, that they've been putting out, because, you can find some amazing gems at a Comic-Con, in an indie aisle, in a, even around the ring on the outside. People really do have, some amazing inspirations, and they'll put their blood, sweat, and tears into just being able to do one book. And sometimes that book is amazing. And somebody who's been doing this, putting that blood, sweat, and tears into one book a lot over the past, I think about 10 years or so, is Michelle Fife, or Fife. Not too sure how to pronounce that last name, but he is famous for Copra. And for a long time, he was actually publishing it himself. He was doing all of the art, all of the writing, all the lettering, everything, including getting the binding, getting the printing, all of that, and mailing the books himself. And he did that for years. If you can find original issues out there, be prepared to pay. But also he also put out some collections as well with a partner of his at the time. That was really great too, and he does sell those at conventions. So if you can't find the single issues, he usually has collections of the story arcs available for you. But for a time, right before the pandemic, unfortunately, kind of bad timing, Image came to him and said, "You know what? We can help you out. We can publish all that. Take all of that marketing and the publishing and the distribution, all that away from your off your shoulders." And you just worry about writing and drawing and doing the stuff that you love to do. So he did, and for about 6 issues, Image put out Copra. It was Copra 1 through 6, available probably starting at the end of 2019 and then into 2020. And then, of course, pandemic hit, huge delays. They finally were able to finish the 6 issues, but that was it. Michelle basically said, "You know what? I think I'm done. I'm going to go back to doing what I know best. I'm going to do it myself." And so these are the first 2 issues, number 38 and 39. He went back to the original numbering, and you can only get these through his Etsy shop. So, it's really great. I do recommend, if you have a chance, just do a search for Copra. There should be still some issues that he's able to sell or that he has available to purchase. And they're, again, not cheap, but they are worth every penny because this is like some quality stock. Thick. I mean, we're talking like thick paper. This isn't normal paper. This is like stock cardboard almost paper. But the art, if you've never seen Michelle Fief's art, it is absolutely gorgeous. Just the colors.
Yeah, Steranko-esque, trippy, very pop art. That is so cool. Yeah, I've never heard of him, and I'm so upset that I'm totally missed this shit, dude, because that looks so cool. It's like right up my alley.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And he fills every single page of his books with just pure joy. Back, front, letters pages, splash page. I mean, it's just one thing after another. And it is really dense. His art is incredible and just amazing to gawk at. But the writing itself is dense. I mean, you're thinking, if you've ever read any 2000 AD output, like any Judge Dredd, classic, UK output, Judge Dredd, or anything by Mobius that wasn't just all art. I mean, we're talking about dense writing. There's so many words on the page. A lot of times, a lot of plot that comes through, and these characters draw. A lot of them inspired by Kirby. A lot of them inspired by X-Men and, other, you can see a lot of those inspirations there from the DC and Marvel universes. But, I mean, it is absolutely just fascinating to read. And there's a lot. So it's worth the money if you can find them. Image still, they actually went and reprinted all of the collections. So you can go and get those now from your local comic shop. It's just fantastic. Try it, give it a shot and look it up. But the latest 2 issues are 38 and 39. So you got 37 other issues under story arcs to go and enjoy.
Fantastic. Well, very cool. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
All right, Tom, what do you got?
Well, I got to say first, have you read those 2 issues?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so rate our issues on a 6-beer rating. So 1 out of 6 beers. 1 beer, it's not that good of a comic. 6 beer, it's really good. It can go beyond 6 beer, you can get creative. It's amazing. So what is the official beer rating for what is it? Copra, right?
Copra. Yeah. So I'm not a big beer drinker, but I do drink cider.
Perfect.
And so what I would say is these are 6-pack of cider, and I'm not talking like Lidl brand or Aldi brand Wicked Orchard. I'm talking like actual Longbow, Strongbow. You can get yourself some cider because it is worth it. And if you can find, and you should be able to find or order through your LCS, the other collections, you can see how the series evolved, and it is some of it you are going to need an entire 6-pack to kind of orient yourself because it gets trippy.
That's cool.
But yeah,
that's very cool.
I am gonna have to make note of I have to make note of this cider rating system. So when you're on next, I'm gonna totally call
it's
on
just
that.
an equivalent. It's beer actually is cool. It's like going from maybe Miller High Life versus PBR or something like that. I don't know.
I love it. All right, John, I'll rock and roll next. So my next books, I'm going to do 2 at a time because they're consecutive. Sometimes I get behind and I'm like, oh, I need to catch up. So it's like, oh, well, I actually have, it's been so long that I haven't read this for 4 weeks. I have 2 issues to read. And that happened 2 different times. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And then I'm so glad I just caught up because this is the issue that I did pick up today, Batman Black and White #3. And so I'm going to talk about Batman Black and White #1 and 2. And so this is #1. I'll hold up. There was a whole bunch of titles that you could pick from, or covers that you could pick from, but the covers are always really good. So basically what they got going on is whoever has kind of worked on Batman in like the last 5 to 10 years and people enjoyed, they're like, will you do a little bit of Batman for us? Or if somebody hasn't ever worked with DC before, they're like, will you do a little Batman for us? And this is kind of John, I don't pick up very much, main continuity type stories right now. So, or none except for, I guess, Rorschach, or, if that's one, or, I guess, Strange Adventures, if that's one. But, so, this is the book that you give your Batman friends that are like, yeah, man, I like Batman. And it's like, they don't really read Batman. They just, say they like Batman. But if you gave them one of these comics, they wouldn't know the creators. They wouldn't know anything. But here's a couple things that would make it special. It's black and white. Mm-hmm. So black and white immediately, people are like, Batman in black and white. Wow, this is cool. So people think it's cool. Second, it's prestige format. So you get like an actual, binding and, everybody. It makes it feel special. It's only $6, so it's like this one. It's not insane. Like it's not a $9.99 book like those one, but it's only, it's not super cheap, but $5.99. It's totally reasonable to just pick up one and give it. And then the actual stories are kind of how they always are in an anthology. It's an anthology. So sometimes the story you're like, oh, whoa, I can't believe this short, beautiful little piece of magic happened. And then you can read the next 4-page or 4-page story and you'll be like, I cannot get through this. It is so, I don't know what is going on. But that's just how it goes. But it's all worth it for those little pieces of magic. What I really like about this Batman Black and White is they are taking the time to put the creator first. And so I want to get to it so I can show you what I mean. But like, so they have a full page and then a description of the who's going to work on the piece, and then who, a little bit about their history with DC, their history with Batman, and it makes it super super interesting. So you kind of know what's going on. Like this one is over the last few years with her stunning work on Wonder Woman and Sugar and Spike, her Eisner nominated run on the Sandman universe, The Dreaming. Bilquis at Evely has become one of the most elegant stylists in comics. And then it like really talks so fluently or, flowery about these cool creators that are taking a little piece of Batman. And then it's really cool. So, I mean, even though I haven't read this one yet, I'm really excited. And I'd give those other ones, even with those stories that aren't as good, I still think it's a 5 out of 6 beer kind of series and super enjoying the ride.
Awesome. Nope. All right. And you're getting some input here, sir. Mr. Matt's chipping in. Batman Black and White series has some amazing creators.
Agreed.
Name dropping. Gerard's Emma Rios, David Aja, and Nick Bradshaw.
I mean, look,
and then
that isn't that crazy? I mean, all those creators on these books. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're talking Tom King, you're talking what's my favorite guy from Legend of Luther Strode? He did this insane art on it. I mean, there's so many good ones.
Yeah. James writes in, DC released an omnibus collecting all of the previous Batman Black and White miniseries, 4 plus the short stories backups from Gotham Knights. Really great book. So awesome. All right, you guys. Well, I am, of course, in the Marvel pool, the Marvel sauna. And speaking of sauna, we got some heat and some ice here, and we are talking recent release from the Marauders line, Marauders issue 18. This title, first of all, is just so freaking random, just like all the other ones. It is a completely just you take a lot of the classic team lineups, and it's like, we're going to put this team together with all these different X-Men characters and just see how it goes. Villains, heroes, why not? And this issue really stood out to me for a couple of different things. So I'm going to litter this with spoilers, so if you haven't read it by now, my bad. But it is just absolutely outstanding. There were some really cool moments here. So first, we have Emma Frost just leading the show as always because she's amazing and we all love her dearly. So she has all of the Marauders on stage. This is actually occurring in Madripoor, and it's just kind of a downtrodden community, so like low income, and basically they are upsetting. There's a group of, it's a child version of the Hellfire Club. And they are undermining them by buying the exact space that they were going to build high-rises on and opening a free hospital. And the free hospital is actually in honor of Moira McTaggart. McTaggart Memorial Hospital, which is awesome. So complete with the statue of her. So that was a really cool moment. The next part of this book that I really liked, actually, and the next 2 parts, go back to that X-Men 90s cartoon, and it makes me so giddy. I fell in love with the Morlocks from the X-Men 90s cartoon. All right, so the Morlocks are, for those who don't know, a group of underground mutants that live in the sewers and are just completely ridiculous and amazing. And I actually found that they do a really good job of tying. I saw the cartoon first, of course, but I've read back issues where the characters were there, and the renditions were actually quite well. And so several of the Morlocks have come to Krakoa as well, including Callisto. And Callisto here is walking in one of the characters named Mask into the hospital and portraying Mask basically as a doctor. And the first patient is actually a baby that has like a misformed mouth. And Mask is able to use powers to heal the face and like craft the skin so that way it's just back to normal for them. So he's able to kind of just reconfigure flesh and bone and everything. So it's almost like plastic surgery, but boom, done. And Mask as a character, this moment was really powerful. There's a panel here where towards the kiddo, you see him with his hands, he's doing his gift or whatever, and then he's like, boom, here you go. And the mother says, I'm afraid to look, open your eyes. And then there's a panel where Mask is getting a hug from the excited parents that are just, so thankful to do that. So it's a really interesting concept for this character because Mask is one, if I recall from previous back issues, there's a lot of tragedy surrounding some of these Morlocks. And then thinking of other power sets too, like Famine from Apocalypse's Horseman, same thing, like touching flowers and it dies and she's super bummed. So some of these abilities, getting cast in a positive light like that has got to be a really cool moment for the character. And that to me makes a really good book. So, and for those of you that don't know me super well, I read for the characters. And so for me, this was a really cool light bulb moment for like a D-list character like that we never hear about. And I thought it was so cool and so neat that we're opening basically a pro bono hospital using our gifts to help the people of Madripoor. That's freaking genius. And it's awesome. And it's just great storytelling. So I love it. I'm on fire about it.
The man, hell yeah, dude! Open that hospital right in their freaking faces. Name it after Moira.
Yeah,
it's a good storyline. Yeah. And you keep talking about this book. It's like, how is this the Marauders, or I can't even say the damn title. How is that the most fun X-Men book right now? That's so cool. I don't know. It's so crazy to me.
It's so random. Up next. And this one also, again, back to the X-Men 90s cartoon, we meet a new breed of Reavers. So Reavers are cybernetically enhanced humans. And these guys like to square off with the X-Men. They are lethal. So they are built by these young Hellfire Club kiddos. And they are not very nice. So they're squaring off against Iceman, against Pyro, against Bishop. So it's a big throwdown scene. the cool thing about this team of Reavers that I actually appreciated is that these Reavers actually were victims. Well, victims. They were caught in the line of combat against X-Men from previous issues, which I thought was very smart. So they name dropped 3 places, 3 different events. So there's recaps of Wolverine stabbing some, Iceman nearly frozen, nearly killed one. So it's just so crazy right now to think that I got books that matter, because that's the number one thing I look for when I collect comics as a continuity junkie that I am, is that, wow, we're building on characters that you wouldn't think that you'd ever see again. And they actually did a really good job at it. Also, with the Reavers, it really makes me think of that 2-part X-Men 90s cartoon where it's like the Shi'ar ship in the sewers. And so the Green Monster goes after the Marauders. And I was like, oh my gosh, that first scene with the Morlocks is so freaking awesome. And then the Reavers were so fun. The guy with the tank treads that's in the X-Men arcade game where you're playing as Dazzler or Storm. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Like, so freaking, I play that game like every other week. I have it in my bedroom. So so whenever I want to play X-Men, I play X-Men. I always play as Dazzler, just so you guys know. I like throwing my fireworks. Or no, not my fireworks, my sound bubbles, but it annoyingly looks like Jubilees. How it works. But it's a good game. It's a good game. Definitely awesome. Highly, you guys, as an X-Men fan, they are just doing so much neat, not even fan service, but just nods to past, present, and just having that relevance of events and stuff is so rich right now with the story of Krakoa. Like, I feel like I need to take like a week off work sometime and just read everything that's come out so far, because there's probably a lot that I've missed, because there's so many characters. There's just so much going on in the panels, and that to me is exciting. It's like a big, like going to a Comic-Con full of all your friends, half of which are on the shirt. Yeah. All the extra characters. Definitely just I'm just on fire about it, you guys. So, and speaking of fire, of course, got Pyro hanging on the cover. So Marauders issue 18, you guys, strong 6 out of 6 beers. Oh, sorry, I'm showing comments here. I threw my thing on the keyboard. Sorry, James. Absolutely love it. We got Aaron Evans is in the building. Aaron, bless you. Thank you for showing up here. So Aaron, a longtime viewer, longtime friend of the show, been with us really, from when we were on IMJ way back in the day. So Aaron, thank you so much. It's the best X book right now. You need to read it, Tom. So there you go. Guess,
Aaron, I know, and John's been talking about it so much, and he clearly has been telling me the same thing. I mean, John loves them all, but just the way that he talks about this one is special. So yeah, I do have to check it out.
Oh, I'm on fire about it. Mike, thanks, guys. I really enjoy you guys and your videos. Thank you. And thank you, Mike, for tuning in. We appreciate that. We just have a good time talking with our viewers. So yeah, if you have any thoughts or any experiences with the books that we're talking about or similar books, feel free to chime in. We'd love to talk. All right. Well, I am done gushing for a minute. I got to simmer down and drink my tea. So Steve, you are up.
Yes. Well, what you got for us?
So there's a lot of really cool stuff out, but we are still in February, and February is Black History Month, and I figured that for this week I'll talk about a book that did come out last week called Shadow Doctor #1, put out by Aftershock, written by Peter Callaway and drawn by Georges Gentil, and I'm probably extra Frencherizing or Francicizing his name. He's probably from Chicago or something, but this book is a double whammy of being a beautifully written book, beautifully drawn book, and also being a true story. It is the biography of Peter Callaway's grandfather, and the cool thing is this book is told from the perspective of the grandfather telling the story to his son, to Peter Callaway's father, while he's on his basically on his deathbed. And what story is it, you say? Well, it is how he, as a young man, just out of med school, became the doctor for the Chicago Mafia, specifically for Scarface. Yes. And so and I'm sure there's plenty of other revelations that are going to happen, but this is where it starts. It is absolutely incredible. He starts off the whole thing with his with the grandfather as a young man, probably about 16, maybe no more than 18, driving a convoy of bootleg whiskey through the country with a kind of familiar-looking gentleman, a younger gentleman, but a kind of familiar-looking gentleman, in the passenger seat, when they are ambushed by the Irish mafia with their Tommy guns that start, shooting like crazy and trying to take out this entire convoy and all the people that are working for it. Thankfully he survives, and he basically says, I wrote 2 letters after I survived. I wrote one letter to myself and another letter to my father. To my father, I basically, apologizing for everything. He actually was, interestingly enough, as a young boy, his mother had taken him to Oklahoma to a Cherokee reservation. Basically, his mother was Cherokee, so he ended up moving with her. He's originally from Chicago. Well, he moved back to Chicago and, apparently got in with the mob. But his letter to himself basically is the really important part, and that's where he decides he's going to become a doctor. He's going to work his ass off. He's going to be that doctor. And so 8 years later, in 1931 in Chicago, he's graduated med school. He's made himself, he's done everything that he could be, but he can't get a job. Now it is, the beginning of the Depression. The Depression's only just been, 2 years old about. But this is also very heavily segregated, highly racist, Midwestern America, specifically Chicago, really notorious. I mean, there are some really heartbreaking scenes in here where he's trying to get work, where he's even trying to go into a building, and he's not allowed because of the color of his skin. But he ends up going. He's kind of down on his luck. He has no other options. He decides to look up his old buddies that he helped 8 years earlier, who are now, a little bit higher up the food chain in the mafia world. And, I know I've already spoiled some of it, but, it is a pretty interesting, very, very fun reveal. But the great thing about this, too, is that this is a book with a lot of back matter, because it is based on a true story, because Peter Callaway is writing about his grandfather. And in a comic book, you're like, oh, cool, this is the hero. This is like, there's all these cool things. He tempers that. He's not going to write him as the hero of this story.
I love that.
He sees his grandfather, obviously had a really exciting life, but made some decisions that probably most people wouldn't want to do, especially nowadays. But, it's really interesting. He fills it with, photographs of his grandfather and his own father. And there's information about, in an interview that he had talking about his grandfather. And it's fantastic. And I can't recommend this enough. And I mean, you can pick it up for Black History Month and sort of see this part of history that you may not be interested, because obviously, or you may not have known about, because again, he's not hugely famous. You're not going to read about him in school. But Peter Callaway, if you're not familiar with him, is a comic book and TV writer, and he's written on for a lot of shows that you probably watched. But this is just a very personal story for him, and it's excellent. It's a great read. So,
oh man, I'm sold. That's so cool.
Shadow Doctor #1.
Fantastic.
Pick it up.
Very cool.
I was eyeballing that like crazy too. I was like, oh, I got my books, and I'm like, I should try it and I shouldn't. I'm trying to cut back, But I might have to check that one out, because I just kept getting drawn back to it. I'm like, it just looks like it's something that I would enjoy.
It's different.
When I go back,
I mean, you think about it, you see this cover and you think, oh, well, it's probably like a crime story of some sort.
Right.
Well, clearly it takes place in Chicago. There might be a doctor in it. I don't know. But it is. It's definitely a lot more than I anticipated, and I'm so happy I picked this up.
That's so cool.
Are you gonna hit it with that cider rating though?
Oh yeah. Oh well, 6 out of 6. I mean, so this is kind of the thing about me, and Matt will probably also agree for this. I tend to talk about books that I absolutely love, and so it's really hard for me to like knock that down if we're going to be rating it, because I'm like, oh, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be gushing about it. So,
Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe the next one I'll be kind of like a little bit, maybe not. But still, I love everything I read that I'm going to talk about. So
yes.
The more sixes, the better in the world.
Yeah.
Yep. got a really cool comment here from Mr. Mike. Nothing against capes, but shows what comics can be. And I completely agree about that. This is something that's been really good about this show for me, is that I was very heavy Marvel when Tom and I met. I was like, oh, no, all I read is Marvel. That's all it is. And Tom's like, bro, there's way more to comics than Marvel. And so now that's why I try out some of these indie offerings. And when I interview a creator, I'm like, yeah, I'll try out your portfolio and see what it looks like, And it's so much fun because you get to meet different people in the community and see their work. And celebrate their efforts, And I love that. I love that. And honestly, it's really hard to feel that connection with a big two comic like you can when you can actually reach out, send a tweet to what is it, Vault? We did. I sent a tweet out, and I had like people that were involved with Vault liking it, retweeting it, and I was like, oh, okay, it was just a compliment review, thank you, And so just the attentiveness that you get as a consumer as well is so remarkable, and it blows my freaking mind every single time. But ultimately, I just like a different take because I get superhero fatigue, especially when we binged all the Marvel Universe movies right before Endgame. I was fried. I was like, oh man, I gotta watch something else. Like, I can't watch another superhero movie for a while, which is horrible to say on a comic book show. But you just kind of like need to switch it up a little bit. So some of the offerings that I've been reading lately, per Tom's recommendations, and then recommendations from others have been outstanding. So James, don't let me down with Arya. We'll see how it goes. But I completely agree. It's so fun to get those different directions and give that a whirl. Another one I'm looking forward to on the not superhero side of things is the Critical Role trade I bought recently. It was like a few months ago. I still need to read that. It's in my backlog. But looking forward to checking that out as well. Just something different.
Cool. Yeah. And that's awesome. And I also think, I'll applaud you for putting up during February Black History Month. I mean, yeah, we have to talk about these things, else they don't get talked about, especially, white guys on the internet talking about comics. If it's penetrating this far, it's good. And Black lives do matter. I think we're all on the same page at this point. And so let's put those to the forefront. Let's see publishers take the chance to tell true stories with the these kind of people at the front. It's awesome, man. So yeah, definitely very cool that and I'm definitely going to be buying. I went to this shop in Florida that didn't have like any comics like that. So yeah, I can't wait to get into our shop. If we have any issues, I will definitely be picking it up. Hopefully they have some left because these are, I mean, it's good enough, and hopefully it's getting a lot of word of mouth because it's definitely just an exciting story and really cool when you flip through and you're like, oh, this is true. This is like this is something that really happened to somebody. Yeah, I'm sure there's some really cool comic book embellishments there, but at the same time, it's such a gorgeous story. Yeah. And also just like Mike says, hey man, it just shows what you can do with comics. I say that every single week. That is, comics is a medium for us to tell stories, nonfiction, fiction, however you want to do it. There is no budget. All right, so I'm going to get into mine. My last two books that I'm going to talk about are The Boys, Dear Becky. You guys have probably seen the TV show. They're clearly trying to cash in on this by putting back The Boys, this 8-issue miniseries. I mean, I love The Boys. I like that it doesn't pull punches at all. It was absolutely, it offended somebody with every single comic. It, pushed the boundaries of what should be in print, makes you question, is this something that even we should be reading? And you know what? I like that. Cut to the show. I do like the show. I mean, the last season wasn't as good, but I love the first season. I still enjoyed myself this season, and I'm excited. But I'll tell you what, man. I enjoyed being back with these characters, seeing Huey and Annie together, but it is a 100% unnecessary comic. And after reading all those through, this is just, it's telling you, Huey, he's still worrying about things, and whatever you thought about you know, Butcher, what's his name, whatever. He's, you know, he's the, it's this, nothing changes is what I'm basically saying. They just reinforce what the story already did, telling some, every once in a while it's kind of interesting, cutting back and seeing what the life could, you know, some different holes, and he has funny ways of still, you know, making fun of comic tropes, but it was almost just like Garth Ennis's way of making some jokes about COVID and cancel culture. And I don't know if it's, you know, it's definitely not worth it. I give it a 3 out of 6 beers on the entire series. I was started strong because I thought it was fun. It was fun to be in the world. But I mean, now that we're wrapped up, it's like, well, I mean, this is definitely, if you read The Boys, just stop at The Boys. You don't need to read this.
Dude, that's a bummer to hear. The main Boys line was fantastic. I was very entertaining.
Like I said,
and the show is to die for. Oh my god! Yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's the best, man. I loved it. But yeah, I mean, this just isn't that. You know, this isn't that. So
yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, you guys, back to the Blushing Bride over here. I got another love of my life, and we already talked about it a little bit. But guys, this Aria Heavenly Creatures issue -- 1. So I said it, you know, when we talked about it last time. But again, this is how I feel when I wake up, twinning. I feel beautiful. I feel vibrant. I feel spiritual. So first of all, let's just talk about prestige format. Let's talk about how thick this freaking book was. Right? I was like, oh my gosh!
It's
like
thick
there's a lot going on here with two C's and 2 K. Yeah, it's insane. It is. I was so surprised by this. So I picked it up because I'm like, I just want to try something new. And I was getting a little bit of Kate fatigue, like we talked about with Mike earlier. And I'm not familiar with this. So needless to say, James was telling me, you know, hey, there's more. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But this is a really cool book to me. It reminded me a little bit of the X-Men notes because we got our written pages as well to kind of introduce. So that was really cool because it just reminds me of what we're doing right now in the Krakoa books. Honestly, it really helps set the stage. And there's some books I read that have the written pages that don't do a good job of that. This one really just got me in the mood, right? I'm just like, oh, all right, we're kicking it. We're hanging out with Lady Kildare. And this opening page, I got to give it up to the art, but holy buckets, just beautiful. The kid is like a little creepy and intense and kind of staring into your soul a little bit, but ultimately it is setting the mood for that book. And the other page I wanted to lift up here at the beginning was this party. Oh my gosh. I mean, we are in that classic estate, flirtation everywhere. It's basically, I don't know, like, yeah, it's basically like whenever we throw a party at the bar here in Sioux Falls. I'm just kidding, but way more ornate, way more just, you know, that it's got that like Victorian mysticism to it, and it's just so intriguing. It's an intriguing culture. There's social dynamics at play here. These characters know each other, which that should have been a no-brainer for me if there's back issues, and I didn't even think about it because this is, if you're not familiar with Aria whatsoever, excellent jumping on point. To get familiar with it, dip your foot into the pool a little bit. The story spanned literally the whole book was just, it just felt like almost like I went through like a D&D adventure or something. But resolution at the end of the issue, which was nice. So it almost felt like just a really huge one shot. But just some of the artwork was just nuts. So just beautiful pages. They had fun with the book, telling the story. I'm assuming the Angel character is probably Angela, now that I've looked at some of these other covers. But it's really funny. They don't necessarily call upon her name in this issue, which is really interesting. So I thought that was really cool too. But looking at the covers from these back issues, I'm like, it's probably Angela. Which brings me to my question of, well, when the heck does this happen in relation to those? I don't know. Is it the same character? I don't know. I need to read all that first, and then I'll have an answer. So,
definitely, though, you continuity, you know, right in the middle. He's going, "What? How can I place this? I need to read all this." I love it, John.
Yeah. And so It was so fun. It was the perfect blend of everything that I look for. Another book that reminded me slightly of this was Mercy, that came out. And it, again, just sexy artwork. It was racy. It was fun. A little bit of bloodshed, a little bit of skin showed, a little bit of sensuality, and it's that perfect balance. Like it's entertaining, it's fun, and it's just really cool. I also did want to just acknowledge there was part of this story was pertaining to kind of a theatrical show with some people with gifts, and this page specifically just really jumped out at me. Two of the characters. So there is a gentleman that can control fire, and then Madam Cobweb on the right hand side. Totally, I'm totally digging that. So there's like bubbles with spiders in there. So it was just really interesting, and the writing on this one is really cool too. So Madam Cobweb, the Athena of arachnids, Gossamer, mistress of the Macabre. What is her secret affection with the lowest of God's creatures? What command does she hold over them and they over her? And I really, really dig that. Like I was like, I want more of Madam Cobweb, and this is just like a person in the background. So you guys, if you're looking for something random, different, show some skin, just has fun with it overall, it is truly a joy. Definitely a keg. I can't even give it 6 out of 6.
A keg.
It's a keg for real. I mean, this was just so fun. It was so fun, and James will attest to this. I am really just looking forward to checking out more of what in the world is going on with Aria, this universe, and just checking it out. So fun. So highly recommend it. If you have not read Aria, I cannot speak highly enough. It just came out last week. Go get it. Boom.
John,
all right.
I'm sending out information. I'm sharing this video right now saying that John just gave out a keg. This is holy smokes, man. Damn, dude, yeah. That's awesome. I'm so glad you found a comic like that, John.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm on fire.
Yeah, thank you, James. Got him going on this, man.
All right. Well, cool. Well, Steve, what do you got?
Oh, I guess I got a couple more comics, and I'm just gonna go over to Hellboy.
Yeah.
I mean, so, like, one of the things that I mentioned when I got back into comics, like, I never really read Hellboy. I knew about Hellboy. I loved the Guillermo del Toro movies. Like, that was my shit in, like, the late 90s, early 2000s. Loved them. Never read the comics. Oh, well. But, when I got into when I got back into comics again, so 2011, 2012, I discovered that they had kept going, obviously, when I hadn't been reading for 20-some years. And they had gone into Hell on Earth. So, if you looked at the BPRD series that kind of took over for Hellboy, was running at the same time as the different Hellboy miniseries. And then Hellboy, spoilers, dies and goes to hell. BPRD, Hell on Earth, kind of took over from that. And so you got to see BPRD and all the crazy characters and all that. But then eventually it ended, and so did the world. Everything ended. So that was it for Hellboy. So what Mignola decided to do is like, well, let's just go back and tell all those stories that we never got to tell from, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and just have fun with it. Go back and, recreate or create for the first time a lot of the mythos. And so this is one of the first, I think he's had like young Hellboy before, kid Hellboy before, Lil Hellboy. But this is young Hellboy. So he's kind of, I would say like maybe 10, 11 years old or so. So this takes place probably in the early 50s. And it's him and the Professor Broom, spelled Brutalholm, just to confuse everybody. He and Professor Broom decide to take a trip to visit some interesting island where they've discovered some Incan underground ruins. Ooh. Which, of course, if you are a big fan of Hellboy, hey, maybe that's one of those secret underground cities that eventually are revealed to still have a lot of people living there. But so they get on a plane, and unfortunately, there is an assassin there who has a holy mission to kill the spawn of hell, Hellboy, because he's known, he's famous. People know of Hellboy And of course his appearance is very scary and disturbing. This is before he started shaving his horns, so he has the full horns and the tail and the giant arm. And some people just kind of like brush it off, like, "Whoa, this guy's crazy," but who cares? He's cool. He's a kid. Others, of course, are like, "This is a sign of the end times," which they're right. So, 100 years later or 60 years later, yeah, guess what? The world's ending because kind of his fault. So, but at this point, you're still rooting for him. And I would root for him anyway. He's a cool guy, and it's not really his fault. So, the assassin attempts to kill him, and unfortunately crashes the private jet that they're on, and it goes down. So, he pursues them to what appears to be kind of a island outside of time, a land before time, or a land outside of time, where there's some really interesting things: dinosaurs, giant apes, giant crabs, the kind you don't want to catch, that usually catch you. And there's also, of course, not to spoil too much, but there is out of nowhere, a jungle girl, of course. So you have to, because if you're going to have a jungle, you got to have a jungle girl. But she's no ordinary jungle girl. She is actually an adventurer in her own right. She is Scarlet Santiago, the Sky Devil, who just happened to take up residence on this really crazy island. But of course, there's a lot of supernatural surprises, a lot of interesting things that are kind of implied that we don't really tell. Just like any other Hellboy story, there's always more to what meets the eye in the first issue. And that's part of the mystery and why I love it. It's a 4-part series. First part just came out last week, put out by Dark Horse, of course. Mignola is co-scripting it with Thomas Snagosky, with Craig Russo and Dave Stewart on art and colors. Beautiful book, a lot of fun. If you like Hellboy, you'll like this. It's and if you've never read Hellboy, why not? It's a good introduction. You don't have to know anything else about Hellboy to still enjoy this book.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let's see. In terms of ciders, I would say it's not the best Hellboy story I've read, and again, it's still kind of early on. So I'm going to say a 4 out of 5. But I'm eyeing the other 2 bottles that are in that pack. I think I might be reaching to it for at least one of them.
A couple
later on.
I get that way too. Don't worry. Cool. All right, Tom. You said that you were.
That's all I got for this
one.
So on to you.
I got one more.
One more.
So Vault Comics. Our dudes at Vault Comics. Hollow Heart, number 1.
Ooh. So
I was drawn to this. I wanted to check it out. It's something just completely different. Hollow Heart it's truly a different book. So Vault, I love their horror lineup that they do. This really doesn't fall into that. So it's kind of its own beat. So I said Vault comic, check. I'm gonna give it a whirl. Groovy cover. I love the bright pink. I think it just really jumped out at me. Check. And then I just kind of flipped through and I was looking, and the colors are just so distinct. There's my favorite shot here is a peek into the robot suit and you see the guts of the creature, which is just absolutely fantastic. I will say that for me, I read for the characters again, so I'm coming into this title really not knowing what's going on. And I will say that the book opens up with kind of like a story of when I was young, I knew a boy who had a fish. So it's like real like symbolic kind of feel to it. And I read through it a couple of times just because your boy's kind of dense. I'm super dense. So I don't do that high level thinking, and that's why I would never make it on Comic Book Bears, because you guys crush that, right? For me, I'm a little dense when it comes to that. Like Tom's more into that than I am, and so I reread it a couple of times, and I'm like, I kind of get where we're going with it, but what does this have to do with what's going on? And that's the harsh reality. And so this is a book, and I don't think I've been in this position before where I'm going to pick up issue 2 only to figure out what is going on in issue 1, specifically at the beginning. As you read on in issue 1, it actually really picks up, and it does a really good job of it. But that opening, I'm just kind of like, I want to learn more so I don't feel like a dork and not understand the opening to issue 1. So I am going to get issue 2. It did have some really fun moments in it as well. So Vault definitely has taken some bold directions with it, which is a lot of fun. I'm really intrigued to see how it goes. But I gotta say the intro didn't necessarily warm it up for me the way like Aria did, as an example. So the stage for me personally wasn't as set, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that issue 2 can connect the dots. So I refuse to give the book a bad review. I think it's probably just because I'm dense, or maybe I read it, it's been like work's been super busy, whatever. So maybe I need to just sit down this weekend and try it out again. I am gonna hit it with a 4 out of 6 beers. So I do need a couple for myself. I'm thirsty. And I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, but I'm betting that I will get more when I read it again this weekend. And like I said, I have a 4-day weekend. Speaking of thirsty, when you have like dating apps and stuff on there showing a little bit of skin, it's just kind of fun. There's actually talk about a hookup between the technician just meeting up with a random guy. So it was just, yeah. So you see a little bit of skin going on there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The book has a little bit of everything going on with some of the guts in the robot suit when he's at work to, I'm going to go have a random hookup, peace. So it really is interesting. But at the end of the day, I guess I just wanted more out of this book because Vault has delivered such quality content from the other titles that I picked up. And so I do want to give it another continued shot, which usually I just drop the guillotine and say, that's a wrap. So with this one, totally 4 out of 6 beers for sure. I kind of wanted more, but I must be dense. I'm going to read through it again this week, though.
I want to jump in real quick and say,
yeah.
John is not dense, and that's bullshit. So, I mean, he's extremely, extremely intelligent. And so then even more so, what it is, John, is like every once in a while when you're reading these indie comics, a creator just has their head a little bit up their ass when they're writing it. That could be what's happening with this one. I mean, I haven't read it, so I don't know. But if you're like, what are they trying to do? Or how is it trying to be this? At that point, that's usually like, yeah, they think they're smart. They think they're going for something. And you are able to see directly through it, John. But I hope pushing on that, you can find some characters. Maybe it could be a good story to push on. But at the same point, man, know that you're smart as hell, dude. I say kick if you need to.
They can't all be Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. So it's 4 out of 6 on that one. But it's rare that I really rag on a book, but boy, when I do, I mean, Steve, you should see some of our old episodes. Oh my gosh. Oh, we used to have this ritual. We should talk history really quick.
Oh yeah,
Steve,
yeah.
We had this ritual called the Lazarus Pit. Where we would literally fill a popcorn bowl. So we literally filled a popcorn bowl up with shitty beer that we didn't like, and then we threw in books that sucked into it and just wrecked them. And so I had a couple of books, I think I left them at Tom's house, where we already did that, and now they're dried and crispy. And then we were gonna run them over with the car and video it, and then set them on fire and all this other stuff, because there's just some books that just don't cut it.
Wow.
One of them was Marvel Comics Thunderbolts Now, the Marvel Now team, where it was Punisher and Elektra. I did not like that line at all. I was so mad at it because I wanted to like it, but I read that first issue and I was like, what is this swill? Because you're following, you're following that main Thunderbolts team with this lineup, and you're coming from pure gold to not good. It was pretty bad. And it was the characters all shine to me. They're great characters. It's just together they're really slow and boring. I did not enjoy it at all. So yeah, that one went in the Lazarus Pit. What other? I don't remember what else I did. But.
I mean, it's hard. A lot of times, when you're kind of like me, and you'll try pretty much anything. If it's on the shelf that looks kind of cool, I might take it off and read it. I tend to luck out a lot, and usually my problem is I'm unable to find issue 2. I read issue 1 and I'm so excited for it, and then I can't find issue number 2, and it's too late at that point, and maybe it's so indie they don't have a second printing, so you're kind of like, well, maybe someday I might come across number 2 in a box somewhere, at some con or in a store, randomly in Topeka. I don't know, I might come across something. But very rarely are there those books where you're like, you read issue number 1, and you're like, well, that was nice. Moving on. Like, I'm never going to read that again.
Yeah.
And on Comic Book Bears, we don't usually talk about the books that we really don't like, because we prefer
We're very blunt here.
not to like immortalize them on a podcast. Talk about it.
Yeah.
But I know, like, creators will work hard, and sometimes creators have a mess. And sometimes, kind of like to your point, John, like giving this book like another chance, like an issue number 2 chance. Sometimes they can redeem themselves. Like, it all connects and it comes back. A book that was kind of like that for me was Annihilator by Morrison. Beautiful book, put out by I think Lionsgate of all places, of all publishers. Like, Lionsgate put it out. Beautiful book, very much creator with head up his ass kind of. You're like, what are you doing with this story? Like, where's it going? What's going on with it? I'm so confused. I don't really know if this is bad writing or maybe I'm just not getting it. Like, what's the thing? But I did give it a little bit more of a chance, and I was pleasantly surprised. It continued to just grow and expand, and layers opened up, and it was, still a crazy story. Don't ask me to explain it to anybody, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you give it a lot of time, you're probably going to get it, or at least if you don't get it, you're going to enjoy the ride of not getting it and just say, like, maybe in 20 years I'll come back and write a thesis on it or something.
There you go.
But yeah, hopefully Hollow Heart works out that way, as opposed to maybe this needs to maybe you need to resurrect the Lazarus pit.
It's not that bad. It is not.
It got a 4.
Four's not bad at all. Hopefully, when you reread it, it doesn't go down to like 3 or 2.
Right. Yeah. No, we won't be doing the Lazarus Pit on this one. And I just, again, it's the dudes at Fall. I love, I just love everything that they're doing. So I definitely want to support them. I'll give it a second chance for sure. It's a bad first date. Whatever. Wine and dine me next time. Let's go.
There's something in his teeth the entire time, and you just like, you didn't know him well enough to say anything, but you were like, doesn't he know? Like, he's got to feel bad. It looks like half a steak. Come on, like, something's got to be.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I could talk all day about stuff in my teeth. Oh my god. Anyways.
All right. I'm getting tired, guys. We got to start shutting it down here pretty soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for you it's a school night. I'm off the rest of the week, so.
I'm so jealous.
Yes, amazing.
So let's start shutting it down. At the end of the show, we like to give, before we give all of our plugs and tell everybody where they can find us, I like to throw a little love our way to some of our other friends, and I think everybody knows where we need to throw love this way. It's the Comic Book Bears. So definitely go and check out, subscribe, follow on the podcast. Check out wherever they are. Bill gave you the whole rundown last week. He has the cadence down. He knows how to do it. But definitely,
just like boom, boom, boom.
That's our suggestion for this week's friend to check out.
Definitely, you can catch us on Comic Book Bears on the Facebook, Comic Book Bears Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at comicbookbears@gmail.com. We're on the Twitter, the Tumblr, because Tumblr still exists, and even though it's not for naughty things anymore so much, we're at Comic Book Bears on those, and in Instagram as well, although we really don't update that as often as we should, but you can always reach us. Facebook is always a great place. We also have the YouTube channel, Comic Book Bears, and we also have a Twitch channel now, which is always interesting when people sign on the Twitch when we're broadcasting. But we tend to have a live show every week or every other week, and then we put the audio version up as well for people who just want to listen to us. So.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. And definitely recommend you guys Comic Book Bears. I always want to say a Comic Book Bears because of a comic book look, but Comic Book Bears, I can talk tonight, I promise. It's fantastic, you guys. Again, they are talking media all across the board. So it's comics. There was a Star Wars special recently just talking about everything from novels to comics to shows to movies. And it was so much fun. The conversation is just awesome and candid, and it's really fun to hear your guys' perspectives. The guest that you have on, you had the guest recently, Oh, I'm blanking on names. Why am I horrible? I'm a horrible person right now. Steve.
Well, we had just this past week we had Steve Bryant, who's the creator of Athena Voltaire, whose Kickstarter for the latest story arc ends, I believe, tomorrow or Friday. So there's still
get on it, people.
Get on it.
Yep.
He's well past his goal. We're in stretch goals, and there's some awesome stretch goals. So anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just a really powerful interview, though. Highly recommend checking that. It was a great visit, and just getting to see creators get on that human level with you and just talk about life is like the coolest thing ever. And it's so fun to see how that impacts their stories. So very good job. Highly recommend Comic Book Bears, though, you guys. Seriously, hang out with them, check them out. They're wonderful people. Thank you, Steve, for joining us tonight. And for your time, and definitely comic book royalty for sure.
Oh, so, well, thank you guys
so much for
having me. I mean, this is so much fun. I love watching you guys. I've started watching you guys, over the past couple of months. And I have, even though I sometimes don't even, don't chime in to chat. Like I love popping in and seeing what you guys are talking about. But thank you so much for having me on. Tom, John, you guys are amazing.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Yes. Awesome. All right, you guys. Well, we're going to start shutting it down here. You can find Tom and I on Twitter, @JohnOnDemand, @TomStuDivine, or collectively find us at @A Comic Book Look and get the full package deal. You can send us a note at thecomicbooklook@gmail.com or continue the conversation with us in our Facebook group at Comic Book Look. So definitely feel free to join us on there. We are just so thankful. It was not a full comic book Sabbath today, but visits like this certainly turn the day around. So thank you, Steve, for talking some reviews tonight. It's fun to kind of hit the books and talk about things that we've been enjoying lately. We are proudly sponsored by Rainbow Comics. So if you're in the Sioux Falls area, stop by 42nd in Minnesota, say howdy to the guys. They are amazing. And then in Lincoln, Nebraska, we have a location as well. So stop on by and say howdy to the crew there, and they'll take care of you and make sure you get what you need. So with that, happy February 24th. I cannot believe we're almost into March of 2021, which I'm still getting used to saying. But it's, of course, I am John on Demand. We got Tom Stu Divine. And you guys know the drill as always. We're going to keep it comics for sure, man. Boom.